I remember the wind first, restless and cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant smoke across our roofs like a whispered warning before dawn. The cherry blossoms drifted lazily above the shrine, even though spring had barely touched our valley. I thought it beautiful, not knowing the omen. I was returning from the river, bare feet wet, basket in hand, when a shadow passed overhead, swift and silent as a hawk's dive. It was no hawk. It was a man in tattered armor, leaping roof to roof, his eyes scanning the village like a predator's. I froze, my pulse thudding in my ears, until a shout split the morning air and sent me running toward the training yard for Master Riku. Mother's voice reached me first, trembling but firm, ordering shutters closed as if paper walls could stop steel. "Find Riku," she said, and I obeyed. In the square, villagers scrambled, some herding children toward the shrine, others grabbing tools and blades, faces pale with the knowledge that stories of raiders were true. The first Ronin appeared, 3 of them, tattered armor hanging loose, swords drawn. Behind them, black smoke curled from the granary, blotting the delicate white of blossoms. I slipped between bodies and shouts until I reached the training yard, where Riku already stood with his sword drawn, eyes calm as winter ice. "Kasuro," he said, voice even. "Find Shori at the shrine. Defend it." I didn't ask why he trusted me with anything. I simply ran. Shiori was there, bow already strung, her eyes quick and sharp. "You're late," she muttered, loosing an arrow before turning toward the shrine's great cherry tree. That was when I saw it. A lacquered scabbard resting against the trunk, white as new snow, shimmering faintly though it lay in shadow. My feet slowed, drawn toward it. I shouldn't have touched it, but my hand closed around the wood, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Shiori's voice cut through my daze. "Kazuto." Then the hiss of an arrow, striking the ground before a Ronin's feet as he lunged toward me. I stumbled back, still holding the scabbard, when a sword intercepted his Riku's blade, moving faster than thought. "Stay behind me," he said without looking. Steel rang against steel. Shiori's arrows hissed past, and still my hand wouldn't release the scabbard. It felt anchored, warm, pulsing faintly like something alive. More Ronin poured into the square. "Too many," Shiori muttered, and we fell back toward the shrine doors, villagers crowding inside, their fear thick in the air. The headman tried to keep order, but the pounding on the doors grew heavier. Riku stood ready. "Hold until they break," he said, eyes never blinking. Shiori glanced at me. "You've never fought, have you?" I shook my head. "Keep the children back," she ordered, loosing another arrow without breaking her gaze. The doors shuddered, split, and the first Ronin threw fell to Riku's sword. The second took an arrow to the thigh, but the third slipped past. He came straight for me, blade raised. I lifted the scabbard without thought. His strike fell, steel meeting lacquer, and stopping dead without a scratch. Shock crossed his face. Riku's blade ended him a heartbeat later. My breath came fast, my grip tightening on the impossible weightless strength in my hands. The battle blurred. Clashes, shouts, blood, and drifting petals. When silence came, the square was littered with bodies, blossoms, and the heavy smell of smoke. Riku wiped his blade, finally looking at me. "Where did you find that?" he asked. I pointed to the tree, still impossibly heavy with blossoms. Shiori narrowed her eyes. "That tree hasn't bloomed in years." Yet pale petals drifted lazily to the ground, as though spring had chosen today alone. Riku studied the scabbard without touching. "No ordinary relic," he murmured, voice low. The words settled in my chest, half a burden, half a strange pride. The headman approached, bowing. "Will they return?" "They will," Riku answered without hesitation. Shiori's gaze flicked to me, or rather to what I carried on my back. "The boy comes with us," Riku said simply. My mouth went dry. "With you, where?" "To keep that safe," he said, as if it were obvious. That night, Mother gripped my hands, her eyes wet, but her voice steady. She knew staying would draw danger. She told me to go with them. Before dawn, I stood at the gate with Riku and Shiori, scabbard slung across my back. The blossoms still fell. I wondered if they always would. The road wound along the river, our village fading behind us. Each step felt heavier, though the scabbard's weight never changed. The air smelled of ash. Riku walked ahead, silent, while Shiori's eyes scanned the horizon. My thoughts kept circling back to the impossible, the way the scabbard had stopped steel. By midday, we reached the ridge. I turned for one last look. From here, the village seemed peaceful. Only the thin column of smoke betrayed truth. I swore then I would not let them return. The scabbard had chosen me, or I had been foolish enough to choose it. Either way, mine. The hills rose ahead, spring buds showing. "We'll reach the border in 2 days if we press," Riku said finally. "Why the border?" I asked, still unsure. "Beyond it," Riku answered, "are people who still remember the White Moon." The name struck me. Ancient, poetic, and heavy with a meaning I didn't yet know. Shiori caught my look. "You'll learn soon enough." Her tone was neither warm nor cold, but it carried the weight of someone who already knew the cost. The wind shifted, carrying petals down the road where no cherry trees grew. I didn't understand it then. I barely understand it now, even after everything. That was the day my life bound itself to the scabbard of the White Moon. The day I stopped being just the boy beneath blossoms. It was the day I began walking toward something vast, something that would demand everything I had to give, and more than I thought I was. We camped that first night by the river's bend, the scabbard resting beside me. Even asleep, I swore I could feel its faint heartbeat. Riku kept watch without speaking, his silhouette unmoving against the firelight. Shiori slept lightly, hand never far from her bow, ears pricked for the slightest sound. The night air was cold, but my thoughts kept me awake. I replayed the Ronin's strike against the lacquer, trying to understand the impossible. At dawn, we moved again. Mist clung to the river, curling around our legs as if reluctant to let us leave the valley behind. "Keep your pace steady," Riku said. "The border roads aren't safe." His tone carried no fear, only the certainty of someone who'd walked dangerous paths before. Shiori led us into the hills, where the trail narrowed between jagged rocks. I wondered how many travelers had vanished here without anyone to remember them. A hawk circled overhead, its cry sharp in the stillness. I thought of the shadow I'd seen yesterday, how it had seemed like a bird. The memory still set my pulse racing. That man had moved with the same silent precision. A predator who knew his prey before striking. Riku paused at a ridge, scanning the horizon. "Tracks," he murmured. "We're being followed." My grip tightened on the scabbard before I realized I'd even moved closer. Shiori notched an arrow. "How many?" "2," Riku answered. "They're keeping their distance. For now." The way he said it made me expect that would change soon. We pressed on, the wind picking up. Somewhere behind, loose stones rattled. Not by accident. I didn't turn, fearing what I might see if I did. By noon, the hills gave way to pine forests. Shadows stretched long, even under a pale sun, making it hard to tell how far we'd come. Riku finally stopped at a stream. "We rest here. They'll have to come close if they want to keep watching." His voice made it sound like bait. I crouched by the water, splashing my face. The cold bit into my skin, grounding me. The scabbard's pulse never slowed, even here in stillness. Shiori sat nearby, arrow across her knees. "You held it well yesterday," she said. I didn't know if that was praise or just observation. "I just moved," I answered. "Didn't think." She nodded once. "That's often better. Thinking can get you killed before the blade does." Her eyes didn't leave the trees. The sound came suddenly. A twig snapping to our right. Riku rose, hand on his sword. "They're here," he said. His voice was calm. 2 figures emerged, not rushing but closing the distance deliberately. Ronin, like yesterday, but cleaner armor, sharper eyes. Professionals, not starving raiders, desperate for coin. "We want the relic," one called. "Give it, we leave you breathing." His voice was even, as though the threat was just a transaction. Riku's blade cleared its sheath. "Try," he said simply. There was no warning after that. Only the ring of steel and the blur of motion. Shiori's arrows hissed into the first Ronin's chest. Before he could close the gap, the second met Riku's blade, sparks scattering into the shadows of the trees. I stood frozen, scabbard clutched to my chest. My heart raced, but my feet refused to move forward or back. I hated that I hesitated. The Ronin pressed Riku hard, his strikes precise, relentless. I saw an opening, but my body still wouldn't act. Then the scabbard pulsed sharply, almost painfully. My vision narrowed, my legs moved before I realized. I stepped into the fight, raising the scabbard to catch a strike aimed for Riku's unguarded side. Steel met lacquer again, with that impossible stop. Riku didn't waste the moment. His sword flashed, ending the fight in a single, fluid motion. The forest went silent, except for my breathing. I realized my hands were trembling, but I hadn't dropped the scabbard. I wasn't sure I could. Riku sheathed his sword. "You'll need to learn," he said. His tone was not unkind, but it left no room for the thought of refusal. We buried the Ronin beneath the pines, marking nothing. Shiori said leaving them for animals would be dishonorable, even if they'd have shown us no mercy. The road felt heavier after that. Every sound seemed closer, every shadow thicker. The scabbard's pulse was steady, as if none of this had touched it. That night, we camped in a narrow ravine. The firelight flickered on the lacquered wood, making it look like moonlight had been trapped inside. Sleep came fitfully. I dreamt of the cherry tree, blossoms falling endlessly, each petal turning to steel before hitting the ground. The scabbard was always there. I woke before dawn, sweat cooling on my skin. The fire was embers now, and Riku was watching the mouth of the ravine. "We move soon," he said without turning. I noticed then that the petals from my dream still clung to my clothes, though there were no blossoms here. We climbed out of the ravine as the sun broke over the hills. Ahead lay a valley I'd never seen, dotted with mist-shrouded rooftops. "The border town," Shiori said. "We'll find what we need here, and maybe who's hunting us." Her voice made it sound inevitable, not optional. As we descended, I felt the scabbard's pulse quicken for the first time since the fight. I didn't know if it was warning or anticipation. The town gates were open, traders moving in and out. No one gave us more than a passing glance, except an old man at the well. His eyes locked on the scabbard instantly. He whispered something, a name, maybe, before turning away and disappearing into the crowd like smoke. Riku noticed. "We'll speak to him later," he murmured. I wasn't sure if later meant after we rested, or after we fought whoever he was warning about. At the inn, we found a corner table. Shiori kept her bow across her lap. Riku sat so he could watch both doors without moving. The innkeeper eyed the scabbard but said nothing, serving rice and tea quickly. The warmth of the bowl in my hands didn't match the chill in my gut. Outside, a bell rang. Not for prayer, but alarm. Shiori's hand tightened on her bow. Riku's eyes flicked to me. "It's starting sooner than expected." I rose without thinking, scabbard in hand. Whatever waited outside, I knew the path had already chosen me, and I was already too far to turn back. The street was filling with people running the opposite way. I saw shadows moving at the far gate, more Ronin and more organized than before. "Stay close," Riku said, already moving toward them. Shiori took the rooftops with a single leap, her arrows ready before her feet even touched tile. The first clash rang out sharp, echoing off the walls. I gripped the scabbard, waiting for the moment when thought would disappear and only movement remained. A Ronin charged me, faster than the others. I lifted the scabbard, the strike meeting it in a spark of light instead of steel. He fell before I saw who struck him. Riku again, moving like the wind, always where the danger was before it reached us. The fight spilled into the square. Shiori's arrows sang, Riku's blade flashed, and still the scabbard pulsed in my hands like a living thing. Then, silence. The last Ronin fell. The crowd began to emerge from hiding. The bell stopped ringing, leaving only the sound of my breathing. Riku sheathed his sword slowly. "They'll keep coming," he said. His eyes met mine. "And so long as you carry that, you'll have to be ready." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The weight of the scabbard was nothing compared to the weight of what his words meant. Shiori joined us, her bow unstrung but still in hand. "He lasted," she said simply. I wasn't sure if she meant the fight or the choice to stand. We left the square before the villagers could ask questions. The scabbard's pulse slowed again, as if satisfied for now. I wondered when it would quicken next. At the edge of town, the old man from the well appeared again, blocking the road. "It's begun," he said, eyes never leaving the scabbard. "What's begun?" I asked, but he only shook his head. "The moon chooses. The blade waits. The rest you'll learn, or you'll die learning." Riku didn't push him for more. We passed him in silence, the road stretching ahead into the trees, shadows already gathering in the distance. My feet kept moving, but my mind stayed on his words. The moon chooses. The blade waits. I wasn't sure which frightened me more. The sun dipped low, staining the road red gold. I looked at the scabbard and thought of my village, the blossoms, the promise I'd made to protect it. That was the day my journey began. The day I carried the scabbard of the White Moon into a world that would never let me put it down.